Hello everybody and welcome back! I am the Pompkin King, and in today's episode we're going to be continuing our playthrough of Pure Imagination in Planet Coaster. In the previous episode we got started building some of the stands and some of the little food and beverage service stuff for the Circus Node. We now have the Carnival section pretty well sorted by this point, so we're going to be working on the camp today. And starting in by just going around and laying out some of these lights. I like the idea of using these sparkle lights as lighting for the paths for the Circus Node, but man, I'm going to regret this piece count later, I swear. Each of these tents requires so many pieces, and I already have so many from the Steampunk Node too. I genuinely don't know if I'm going to be able to get through all 6 nodes without having to go to a separate map. So we'll find out, I guess. Right here, I'm building some custom trucks. One thing that I've noticed about Planet Coaster, and it is very strange to me, is that they don't have actual truck set pieces. Like here again, this is what I'm talking about with the set piece number. Like, in order to make a truck, I have to make everything on the truck, which means I need the chassis, 4 wheels, and the bed to the truck. So that's 6 pieces for what could just be 1. I don't understand why it isn't. And then I decided I wanted a big semi-truck, and it got even more complicated because I had to use multiple containers in order to get the full 53-length trailer bed. Then I had to use all of the different wheel pieces in order to be able to get the correct number of wheels. And then I had to have axles and everything on there. So it seems like necessary to have this amount of work just to have a semi-truck. And it's like, come on, Frontier, what are you doing? Get your stuff together. Just get it so that we have the ability to have semi-trucks in the game already. I don't know why we don't. Anyway, I did a couple of these custom semi-trucks, and then we're going to just take a walk around through the carnival now. So we do have a whole bunch of exhibits, we got a bunch of rides and stuff. One thing that I've noticed is weird about the AI in this game is that even though I have a whole bunch of very exciting rides, they keep going to just the same ones over and over. So the 3 that are the biggest crowd pleasers are the Witch's Den, the Jailer's Lair, and the Phantom of the Opera Dark Ride. Which is all well and good, you know, but it does mean that people don't really come into the Circus Node that much, which is a pain because I have so many rides here. I've got the Hellion Wheel, I've got the swings, I've got this Cyclone. I have a custom-made Wild Mouse roller coaster. I mean, look at this thing. This is amazing. We got it off the Steam Workshop, and again, if you'd like to see us take a ride on it, you can check out the previous video to go through. It's an excellent reconstruction of the Wild Mouse Double XL. But as we're coming through, you'll notice there's not a lot of people in the Circus Node. And admittedly, it's because partially you can't interact with all of these booths and all these food stands. A lot of them are just decoration. But even so, you'd think that they'd be able to come through more than we do. I like to use some of these haunted trees, by the way, to try and make a barren tree. If you turn it around, it doesn't have the scary face. It just looks like a regular barren tree, and that's fine. So here we are in the camp. I had a blast laying this out. I knew I wanted there to be a variety of different stuff in the camp. So we have every kind of method possible for being able to stay the night in certain places. We've got tents, we've got pavilions, we've got trailers, we've got RVs, all sorts of stuff. And then we're just going to dive in here and we're going to build the train station for the Circus Node. This one presented me with a unique creative challenge. I don't exactly know how one would go about making a train station for something that moves around a lot. because I'm trying to balance, the idea of it being a circus/carnival that moves around with the reality that it is actually part of a theme park that doesn't move and is just here all the time. So the storytelling is saying that it packs up and moves from place to place, but the actual reality says that it doesn't. So balancing those two things makes it an interesting challenge for the Circus Node. It's also particularly interesting, and we'll get to this in a little bit, how I balance it with the other nodes in this particular bronchial. Because the next door neighbor to it is the city/studio node, which we haven't got to yet, but eventually we're going to have to figure out a way of blending together circus and city studio. So I need to figure out like some buildings that would apply to both that have overlap like we did with the horror node and the steampunk node, and then be able to work it in such that it just kind of flows seamlessly from one to the other. So here I'm just throwing in some bunting. I again like the idea of having bunting around on the train station, but it does hurt my piece count. And then we get designing our train. So the circus used to come in wagons originally, and what I'm building now is actually a circus wagon. This is one of those traveling billboard type wagons that has the advertisements for the circus on the side. And I had a lot of fun designing different variations of this with the set pieces and so on. Now, back in the day, the way it used to work is that the circus would hire plasterers to go out and canvass entire towns advertising the circus before the circus would arrive. And in order to do that, they had people that would travel out to the towns and cities and put up flyers and posters and stuff. And because circuses were so competitive back in the day, they used to tear down other circuses' flyers and put theirs up over the top of them. So there were actual circus wars where plasterers would get into actual fist fights over who was going to set up their flyers where and all the rest of that. And it's just really interesting to learn about this kind of history aspect of it. You guys know I really enjoy history, and this is a fun thing anyway. So we're just building a variety of circus wagons here. And I'm using some of the screens that have the images on the side. Later I do use some of those vintage banners as well, but the screens work actually pretty good because they also provide illumination. And then we're just changing up some of the colors and all the rest of that stuff to make it look like it is, a proper circus wagon. One of the things that I like about this game is that it doesn't have any set time period. When you're building a theme park, you can have it at any set time. So with the vintage pack and stuff, we can have stuff from the old-timey circus back in the day that's brought into the modern world, which I think is awesome. It's very anachronistic. We have all the stuff combined together with new circus things and like turn of the century circus things and 1850s circus things. But I like that we have this option of being able to just kind of blend it all together, and then that you can experience through this game all kinds of wonderful things that happened in the past that you'll never be able to experience again. Like the original Barnum Circus from 1856. You'll never see its ilk again because, as things we've already talked about, like problematic animal handling, exploitation of workers, that sort of thing. But that's not part of the circus magic, so it is part of the reason, though, that you'll never see that ilk again. But, the theme park you don't have to worry about that. You know, you just get to experience it as it was. Some of the greatest things that have ever been, and you can experience it here. This is something that I was working on in the Steampunk Node too, and I have another project that I am working on in the background that is going to be in a similar way. More on that later. I don't know exactly when it'll be ready. The piece count is over 12,000 already, and we haven't even started on any of the exhibits yet. But I'm very excited to debut it when it is finally ready. Speaking of being able to experience things that you wouldn't normally be able to because, you know, history, I'm recreating the Barnum's American Museum from Manhattan right now. This was built originally on Broadway, and it burned down. The original Barnum Museum burned down, which is a shame because it was a place that had all sorts of entertainments. It wasn't a circus. If you've watched The Greatest Showman, you might believe that it was a circus, and actually they didn't do any of the circus acts at the Barnum Museum. What they did do was have lectures. They had curio exhibits, they had traveling exhibits, they had singers, they had orchestras, they had entertainments, and it was all set up in such a way that you could come and experience them at any time, and you'd always get a good, clean, wholesome show. That was something that P.T. Barnum was adamant about, was that his show would not be something that any Christian mother would be ashamed to bring her child to. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was pretty big of him considering that, you know, P.T. was an absolute monster. Like, beyond, like, Hugh Jackman, Greatest Showman, movie, which is a lot of fun if you haven't seen it. It's a great movie, but it does not reflect the real P.T. Barnum at all. The real P.T. Barnum was like just the worst, actually. He would exploit just about anything, and he could put a spin on just about anything to make a profit. But yeah, I do think that it is cool that he had, you know, principles about the kinds of things that would go on in his show, because it would have been easy to make money by just presenting bawdy spectacles, and he didn't do that. So here is our Barnum Museum. I do want to go through and put in some custom flags at the top. Now, in the next episode, what we're going to do is we're going to go inside the Barnum Museum, and we're going to set up a restaurant and a hotel and a couple of other things inside here. But that is all fodder for next time. Until that time, though, I am the Pompkin King, and I will see you later.